Hello and welcome to Fostering Supportive Learning Environments, Planning for Success, a module under the Mental Health and Supportive Learning Environments focus under the Accelerated Learning through an Integrated System of Support. My name is Dr. Dana Milakovic, and I am the Mental Health and Alcohol and Other Drugs Specialist with the Office for Safe Schools in the Department of Education.
And my name is Dr. Scott Curran. I'm the Director for the Office for Safe Schools at the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Before we dive into planning for success within the supportive learning environment, I want to tie into the work from the Systems Conditioned Learning module. Planning for success should be a part of an ongoing continuous improvement process. This cyclical process has been around for a long time in industry and healthcare before becoming popular in the educational setting. The continuous improvement process identified here is designed to help groups determine what is working and what needs to change, establish a process to engage stakeholders to affect change, leverage effective practices to implement a plan, and to use data to monitor and make timely adjustments to continual improvement. There are several frameworks for continuous improvement and ways to plan for success, which we will cover in this presentation. Setting the direction around a clear purpose is the foundation upon which an improvement cycle is built and becomes a North Star to guide decision-making as the systems works through the improvement process. Another important part of the pre-planning process is engaging a diverse complement of stakeholders. This is a meaningful and inclusive best practice to effectively improve programs and services for students. Making decisions in an inclusive and transparent way leads to better decisions and encourages stakeholders to contribute and become partners in achieving system goals. Communities and schools will support improvement strategies that they help develop. Creating partnerships with a diversity of stakeholders, including parents, community-based organizations, and others, will build local capacity to implement innovative and ambitious strategies for meeting the needs of students and establish a solid foundation for planning for success. Once you have established a diverse, inclusive committee, it is time to ground the work of the committee in a clear purpose. Effective organizations have a clear direction that informs the work for all their employees. Effective educational leaders are no different, and they help their schools to develop or endorse visions that embody the best thinking about teaching and learning. The vision provides all stakeholders with a common direction for growth, something that inspires them to continuously strive to better meet the needs of students. When planning for success in the learning environment, it is critical to have a common agreed upon destination. A common understanding of the destination allows all stakeholders to align their improvement efforts and ensures everyone is working toward the same goal. Once the shared goal is established, the work turns toward using the needs assessment to identify and better understand all the factors that are currently contributing to the problem we are trying to solve. After your committee has established a clear purpose for the work, it is then time to set the direction. This linear diagram sets forth an approach to prioritize the social and emotional well-being of students. As we move through planning for success in the supportive learning environment, we will present a multifaceted, organized process to help assess the needs of all students and begin to learn how to use your own data to impart change within the learning environment. This slide in front of you is a great visual representation of the continuous improvement process and can be used to help your district and school organize an approach to planning for success within the supportive learning environment. The team has set the direction in the planning process. Therefore, it is now time to assess the need. Take a moment and read the quote on the left. If we adopt this mindset, we are getting the results we see in our student data because of the way our system is designed or is currently operating. The purpose and focus of the needs assessment is then about analyzing the current system and processes and trying to gain an insight into why these systems and processes produce the results that we see when we identify the purpose statement. It can be tempting to jump to ideas for solutions. Instead, successful school systems use the needs assessment and the tools in the planning process to more fully understand why they are getting the results they are seeing in the student data. Taking the time to unpack how the design of our educational program, the inequities in policies or practice, and how other aspects of the system are working, for whom and why will they help teams identify the highest leverage for improvement. Dr. Milakovic will now continue into the next phase of planning for success by taking a deeper dive into using student data to inform decisions.
As we are looking for data and supports for building learning environments, we want to ensure that we are including the voices of families and students who have been historically marginalized. We need to use the data that we have in order to inform decisions. This does not mean building additional teams or buying programs that will give us additional data. We want to present ways that you can use the data that you have in your school in order to make informed decisions and include that data in your system to go through the improvement cycle. We want to ensure when we're looking at stakeholder input that we're looking at our voices of our students. While this is not always appropriate depending on the age of students, especially as we move into middle and high school, students are able to be part of our building level teams and ensure that they are having a voice in the policies, procedures, and viewpoints that they have as key members of our school environment. We want to include the voices of our families and ensure that we are hearing the voices of educators and administrators. Throughout the data process, we want to be solution focused. We want to think about how do we focus on problems and not systems or placing blame on individual symptoms of a problem. We want to ensure that we avoid admiring the problem so that we can move into a solution. Some examples of school level data are listed here. Looking at attendance data can help you identify your more vulnerable students who are not engaged in a school system and a learning environment. Attendance can be looked at for learning and assessment, but it can also be key indicators that there is something occurring with a student's mental wellness that is impacting their ability to learn in your school system. Looking at behavioral data, course performance, and changes specifically in those two areas can help you identify students who are at higher risk of mental health or alcohol and other drug concerns, and also students who need additional support in their home environment. Looking at supplemental support data, such as your students who are experiencing homelessness, students who identify as students of migrant families, students who have 504s or IEPs, or students who are English language learners are also important sources of data. Linked on this slide are two additional supports, the staff and student wellness checklist and the organizational self-care checklist. Both of these link to Google Documents, which you can then save as copies for your individual school system and be able to inform higher levels of staff and student wellness and identify specific areas of focus as you engage in your planning. A data source that is available free to all schools in Pennsylvania is the School Climate Assessment. These surveys are on the Office for Safe Schools website at the Pennsylvania Department of Education. The surveys are intended to provide schools with formative and summative climate data for use with needs assessments, program development, and short and long-term planning. Surveys are currently available for grades 3 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12. Surveys are also available for staff and faculty, caregivers, and community members. The Pennsylvania School Climate Assessment just went through a validation process, which changed the focus and ensured that there are now 3 different survey domains. These include student support, which was on the previous school climate assessment, social and emotional learning, which is a new domain, and school safe and respectful climate. Psychometrics are available for all domains in the school climate assessment. When you are doing a school climate assessment, you can use your data to drive your conversations and decisions about improvement. This data helps align and integrate school climate efforts with other school improvement efforts, helps you identify priorities, and helps you embed school climate improvement within your policy, practice, and systems in the school to overall enhance your learning environments. When you create a school climate survey account, if you have not already done school climate surveys, when you are on the Department of Education's website, you can get an invitation code, or you can contact Jay Wasser at 814-243-3658, and he can provide you with a code. An additional data source is found on the Pennsylvania Department of Education's website under our Equitable Practices Hub. The purpose of the Equitable Practices Hub is to establish a coherent collection of resources that an educational community may use in promoting intentional equity in your community. The resources have been handpicked and reviewed and represent best practices, models, and guidance from all of their components. They are divided into 6 pillars, which are then addressed within the 3 spheres of school, classroom, and individual. The 6 pillars are general equity practices, self-awareness, data practices, family and community engagement, academic equity, and disciplinary equity. Highlighted on this slide is the Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium Criteria for an Equitable School Tool. This is on the front page of the Equitable Practices Hub and is a valuable data source in addressing equity in your school environment. An additional resource that we would like to highlight is the School Health Assessment and Performance Evaluation, or SHAPE system. The SHAPE system is provided free of charge through the National Center of School Mental Health in conjunction with the Maryland Department of Education and the Baltimore Medical School. There are SHAPE domains and assessments that address teaming, needs assessment and resource mapping, screening, mental health promotion services and supports, which can also be viewed as Tier 1, early intervention and treatment services and supports, which are Tiers 2 and 3, funding and sustainability, and impact. A main focus for addressing mental health is the SHAPE assessment and the quality assessment on the SHAPE system. There are several assessments that you can find on the SHAPE system. They include a trauma assessment as well as the quality assessment. We are going to focus on the quality assessment today as an overall portion of your planning. When you address the quality assessment, this can be done by a school team. It's important to realize that school teams vary. And whether you're addressing it as a district or an individual school building, you should design a team to complete this that best suits your needs. This can be a range of individuals from administrators to mental health professionals to a school climate team to a leadership team to a multi-tiered system of support. There really is no one-stop answer for how we address teaming when we're completing this assessment. The assessment takes about an hour, and I know that is important when we're thinking from a school perspective. You can complete this as individual domains. After you complete each domain, you'll receive a summary report of that domain, and it gives you an overall score. So when you do the assessment, the scores come out in red, green, and yellow. Green saying we've got there, we're well on our way to meeting this goal. Yellow, which is we're moving in the right direction, and red indicates this may be an area of focus. Once you complete a domain, you will also get a strategic planning guide. This is a tool that teams can use to map out the next steps to improve quality within that domain. It's important to realize that, similar to what Dr. Corinne talked about, we want to ensure that we are making strategic decisions about what we are moving forward with in terms of goals. So when we do that, we don't always have to pick our highest area of need. Sometimes we want to look at what we're doing well and how we can improve them and continue to collect data on them. In addition to an overview of each domain, the summary report contains a front page with each domain in a different color and includes your mastery, progressing, and emerging. This is a summary report with all domains completed. Like the individual domain reports, the summary report also contains a strategic planning guide, and this can promote teams to list 2 to 3 domains in which they scored the lowest to help focus quality improvement efforts, or 1 domain in which they're doing really well and they want to continue to focus on, and 1 or 2 that they want to put a strategic focus on improving. This guide also helps teams map out opportunities and barriers, action steps, and a targeted timeline for improvement. As part of the SHAPE system, you will have access to a variety of resources. The Resource Center contains the School Mental Health Quality Guide series. There is a quality guide for each domain, and the guides contain background on the domain, best practices, action steps, examples from the field, and resources from the field. And all of these are linked in the SHAPE Resource Center. There are full action steps and resources linked to each quality domain, which allows you to take best practice approach as you engage in your strategic planning. When you are creating a SHAPE account, you will have access to a variety of resources. I'm putting this slide on here for reference. However, it is important to note that when you go to the SHAPE system, there is also videos that walk you through each step. One thing that we do see some difficulty with when creating a SHAPE account is what level you're registering for the SHAPE account, either as an individual, which are members of the community that sign up that you want to invite as part of your team, school members, a district level, or a state or territory. We encourage you to sign up as a school or a district. And if you are not part of a school or district that is listed in the SHAPE, we ask that you be patient. In the upcoming months, by the end of May, beginning of June, there will be a feature added, and this allows for an entity creation. So this will include intermediate units, any private organizations who are in a school system, or correctional institutions who want to assess their comprehensive mental health. An additional resource is the National School Mental Health Curriculum. This curriculum is intended to be used with district teams that can influence, develop, and oversee school mental health systems at a school district and building level. The curriculum is divided into 8 modules that are each designed for delivery in 1-hour in-person sessions or can be adapted for shorter or longer sessions. It is intended for local individualization as needed, and you can add or edit language and resources to align with your local cultures and efforts. The modules include Foundations of Comprehensive School Mental Health, which includes core features and district examples. Teaming, which is the what, why, and how to create aligned district and school mental health teams. Needs assessment and resource mapping, which helps you identify student mental health needs and strengths. The screening, which has in-depth conversations on benefits and considerations to screening, how often you should screen, as well as tools and implementation guidance. Mental health promotion for all, which is tier 1, and it discusses the value of universal mental health promotion and how this aligns to your school climate and your positive learning environment. Early intervention and treatment addresses tiers 2 and 3. This module discusses the what, why, and how of mental health early interventions and treatments, and includes examples on treatments. Funding and sustainability addresses how you can optimize your financial and non-financial assets to maintain and improve a school mental health system over time. And lastly, Module 8 addresses impact. This is how you address data-driven leadership through documenting and reporting impact of practices, policies, and programs over time for continuous quality improvement. We're going to discuss how we create a plan. As previously mentioned, strategic planning is part of the comprehensive improvement continuous cycle. And before we start talking about goal development, I want to frame our thinking with this Chinese proverb. It is better to take many small steps in the right direction than to make a giant leap forward only to stumble backwards. I think this is relevant because we're in a time when we see the value and importance of mental health supports and building equitable, trauma-informed systems that focus on positive learning environments. Because we see this as such an intense focus, we may be tempted to jump right in and hit the fast forward button. But the actual implementation of our ideas comes with challenges that we need to work out along the way. So we need to be strategic in our planning and our processes. We cannot change or improve the entire system at once. However, by taking a step at a time to identify areas of need and strength, and then scale them up as we learn, we can move forward towards those bigger, sustainable systems changes that we envision. As part of our planning, we want to identify SMART goals. SMART goals are strategic, measurable, ambitious, realistic, time-bound, inclusive, and equitable. When we think about strategic goals, we want to ensure that we're reflecting an important dimension of what your organization is seeking to accomplish. Are we looking at capacity building? Are we addressing program changes? Are we addressing data collection? Measurable. We want to include standards by which reasonable people can agree on whether the goal has been met. When we are ambitious, we're looking at making goals that are challenging enough that achievement means significant progress, and it's a stretch for the organization, but not so big that we are unable to obtain them without significant frustration on our staff, administration, and community, and we don't feel like we're moving forward. That ties into the realistic. We want to make sure that we're thinking about resources and execution, and how can we track the time and energy to meet our goals. When we're looking at time bound, we have a very clear deadline, and it is inclusive and brings traditionally marginalized members of our community and our families and school system, particularly those most impacted by our goals, into the processes, activities, and decision policy making in a way that communicates shared power. And lastly, our goals should be equitable. We need to make sure that we're including an element of fairness or justice that seeks to address systematic injustice, inequity, or oppression. Some examples of goals include thinking about sustainability, funding needs, staff capacity, and we want you to think about how you can integrate this into other initiatives. Often in a school system, we think in terms of silos, and when we're looking at building positive learning environments, we want to think about how do we integrate systems and integrate those social emotional supports and learning into our instruction. We want to think about our teaming and how we promote staff capacity and addressing staff wellness. This is so important as we are building our communities and we're building our goals to ensure that we are having effective communication and we're engaging in relationship building. That relationship building is administrator to administrator, administrator to staff, staff to students, really looking at a comprehensive relationship building and in making sure that we understand we can do this with community supports. That as we enhance our relationships with our community, we're able to build our capacity within our school system and not feel as though we have to travel this path on our own. How do we evaluate our system's capacity to implement changes? We know that we will develop priority areas and we really want to dream big, but start small. So how do we think about what is our capacity? What is our motivation? And how do we look at moving forward from baby steps to achieving our really huge goals that we want to achieve? And looking at action plannings, we really want to identify discrete changes. How do we look at our day-to-day activities, those things that we do every day, whether they're written down on paper as policies or they're everyday practices or process that are in our school systems? And how do we look at changing them and making a prediction that it's going to help us meet our goal? So this can include eliminating duplication or creating efficiency to improve our workflow. How do we change our learning environment by the way that we walk through the halls, for example, or we address our behaviors, or we communicate to our staff? How can we reduce our variation in order to improve consistency with our communication and our practices? And how do we manage our time during the school day? These are just some examples to get you started thinking, but really thinking about what you do on a daily basis and how those little changes can make significant outcomes towards your goal. And then planning for success. When we're looking at planning for success, we want to really plan for our start date and a completion date, thinking back to those SMARTY goals, really looking at a timeline, starting small and thinking, how do I make baby changes that are going to eventually make an impact, but this is how we learn? Who is our lead person on this project? What materials, resources, and support do we need? Do we need to plan for professional development? And how do we create a communication plan that allows us to communicate to our stakeholders, we are making small changes with the goal of making a larger impact?
We also want to make sure that our plans count. And in doing that, we have to focus on two things: those anticipated outcomes and monitoring and evaluation. As Dr. Milakovic indicated earlier, we want to focus on the small shifts that make a powerful change. Due to time constraints and the demands of the everyday workload in a system, the monitoring and evaluation portion of action planning can get unintentionally set aside. Some of the reasons this step is so important is it helps minimize the resistance to change. It also can help districts save money and staff capacity by implementing small shifts, modifying as needed to be successful, and scaling up for full implementation. It also can create opportunity for learning without impacting performance. It allows you to predict how much improvement can be expected from anticipated outcomes step and confirm or abandon your prediction. It allows you to evaluate the cost and side effects of change. And finally, it forces us to think small and implement those small, tangible changes that are practical and manageable. Teams can decide if they want to abandon, that would be discard anticipated outcomes and try another one. They can adapt, improve the change, and keep testing anticipated outcomes, or adopt. Anticipated outcome is meeting the event and plan how to implement on a larger scale for sustainability. When we look at professional development guidance to schools and staff on self-care and responses to stress, loss, and trauma, can help staff understand their own emotional responses during this pandemic. These sessions are anticipated to increase staff engagement in peer support and self-care, and help them identify when those additional supports may be needed. This guidance should be linked to the school's tiered plan for supporting staff and student wellness. Communication is essential. We all know that clear, concise, and understandable communication is an effective final step in planning for success. Engaging stakeholders in developing and delivering the message that meets the language needs of the school community is critical. Communicate what makes your school or district special, and avoid those educational abbreviations and avoid the jargon that may distract from the purpose of the messaging. This concludes the first learning module for planning for success in a supportive learning environment. You can access the additional information about accelerated learning by going to the PDE website and following the Roadmap for School Leaders section. Hopefully, we set the stage to provide the necessary framework and begin planning for success in a supportive learning environment. There are 3 additional learning modules in developing supportive learning environments, which are moving to action, teaming for success, and mobilization of staff and student wellness. All of these are posted on the Accelerated Learning platform on PDE's website. Additionally, there will be collaborative check-in sessions held on the following dates, which will provide an opportunity for districts to check in, share their experiences with each other, and discuss those best practices and success stories. PDE staff will be available during these sessions to field any follow-up questions. And finally, here is the exit code and links to confirm your attendance at this session. On behalf of Dr. Malakovic and myself, thank you so much for attending Planning for Success.